mother from getting those as well. Many mothers find that exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is simple, provided that the enabling environment, of course, and support needed is provided. Unfortunately, in many countries, exclusive breastfeeding rates are very low. For example, in the Gambia, a survey that was done in 2010, that is the multiple indicator cluster survey, shows that 33% of mothers practice exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of their baby's life. Fellow Gambians, with the enormous benefits associated with breast milk and breastfeeding, peer counseling can play a very important role in establishing and sustaining breastfeeding. Peer counseling programs are cost-effective and a highly productive way to reach a large number of mothers more frequently. A peer counselor, for example, can be anyone in the community who is trained to support mothers. Trained peer counselors, therefore, readily available in the community, become the lifeline for mothers with breastfeeding questions to ask, for example, issues to raise, and difficulties that they want clarified. The key to best breastfeeding practice is continued day-to-day support for the breastfeeding mother within her home and her community.
Vice President Jai said it there, delivering a statement on the occasion of this year's World Breastfeeding Week. The second batch of GAMCOI 15 Tuesday touched down at the Banjul International Airport following a 6-month peacekeeping mission in the troubled region of Darfur, Sudan. The soldiers were received at the airport by the Army Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Usman Baji. The arrival, as we hear in this report by Babakar Senghor, coincided with the departure of 104 soldiers of GAMCOI 16 deployed to Sudan to replace the arriving troops.
Successfully completing a 6-month peacekeeping mission in the restive Sudanese region of Darfur, personnel of the Gambia Armed Forces GAMCOI 15 returned to Banjul. The men and women in uniform who were in cheerful mood were received by the Army Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Usman Baji. Following their deployment to the war-torn region of Darfur earlier this year, according to the CDS, these soldiers have played a very influential role with high sense of professionalism in the maintenance of peace and stability in the region. Some of the new tasks they assumed, the Army CDS Baji says, have not been easy to deal with. The Gambia is an active member of the United Nations, particularly in the maintenance of peace and stability in crisis-stricken regions, and its peacekeepers have been recognized with great repute for their expertise. Following the withdrawal of Egyptian troops from Darfur, these soldiers were tasked to inherit the difficult duty to secure some of the most sensitive areas in the province. As the second batch of GAMCOI 15 arrived, another contingent of 104 soldiers of GAMCOI 16 departed for the region to replace the arriving force. The Army Chief of Staff provided the contingent the customary words of wisdom ahead of their next journey to a place that has now become synonymous with Gambia's exemplary role on the international peacekeeping endeavors. It has been a decade now since Gambia's first armed contingent took part in peacekeeping duties in Sudan's Darfur region, and have always stand out for being among the most professional forces in the region. After so many years of internal insecurity in the region, and with significant human and material toll, the role of the international community to ensure peace prevail in the region continues to be a significant factor in the peace-building initiatives. For Grts News, this is Babakar Senghor.
Ahlul Bayt Islamic Association, a body founded by the Lebanese community in the Gambia, recently handed out food items to patients and some staff on duty at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. The gesture, as Ndekumba Demba reports, was used by association member Imam Rabi Fairat to pray for the well-being and speedy recuperation of the patients.
Each comprising sugar, rice and other food items was distributed by the Ahlul Bayt Islamic Association led by Imam Rabia Farad to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. Imam Rabia describes the annual event as part of the charity's efforts at extending a helping hand to people who are in need of such support. Sharing with patients at the teaching hospital, he went on, could bring smiles in the faces of patients. Imam Rabia also commended the hospital management for the warm welcome accorded to his people while extending appreciation to the government-conducive environment that exists in the country. The chairperson of the donation committee, Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, thanked the association and the Lebanese in the Gambia for this good gesture. Members of the charity, along with hospital staff, later went around the various wards to hand the food packages to patients, while some of the other items were presented to the pediatric unit. The beneficiaries extended gratitude to their donors who have in recent times been active in providing support to major referral hospital. For Grts News, I am Deikuma Demba.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Susan Wafa Ogu, recently led a high-powered delegation to the 387th meeting of the African Union Peace and Security Council held at the ministerial level on the 29 July 2013 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. A dispatch from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs indicates that Minister Wafa Ogu was accompanied by Momodu Sabali, Minister of Presidential Affairs, Secretary General and Head of Civil Service, and other senior government officials. The meeting was chaired by the External Relations Minister of the Republic of Cameroon, Mr. Per Mokoko Monjo, in his capacity as chairperson of the Peace and Security Council for the month of July 2013. Also in attendance were Thabo Mbeki, former South African president and chairman of the Africa Union High-Level Implementation Panel for Sudan and South Sudan, retired General Abdusalami Abubakar, former president of Nigeria and member of the African Union High-Level Implementation Panel, as well as Ambassador Rahmatani Lamara, African Union Commissioner of Peace and Security Council, among other dignitaries. The meeting, the release adds, focused on the operationalization of the African Standby Force and establishment of the African capacity for immediate response to crisis, the situation between Sudan and South Sudan, adaptation of the conclusions of the Yaoundé ECCAS ECOWAS Summit on Maritime Safety and Security, and briefing on the developments of the situation in Egypt. In a separate engagement, the Foreign Affairs press release disclosed that Minister Wafa Ogu also served as Special Envoy of the President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh, to deliver a special message to His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. A range of important issues bordering on the excellent bilateral relations between our two countries, as well as the current crisis in Egypt, were discussed during the courtesy call. We'll be back with news from outside the Gambia after this break. Welcome back. The Prime Minister of Zimbabwe and presidential aspirant Morgan Tsvangirai has slammed Wednesday's general election, describing as a huge farce that does not reflect the will of the people. Mr. Tsvangirai's comments came as Mugabe's ZANU-PF party claimed victory. We have more in this report by CFI.
Is null and void.
Claims of an election victory by Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe were swiftly slapped down by Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai, who ran against Mugabe in Wednesday's general election.
Our conclusion has been that this has been a huge farce. The credibility of this election has been marred by administrative and legal violations which affect the legitimacy of its outcome. The election does not meet SADC guidelines. It is a sham election that does not reflect the will of the people.
Shortly after this declaration, riot police were deployed at Tsvangirai's party headquarters. Yet Zimbabwe's leading domestic election monitoring agency also claimed that the vote was marred by irregularities.
Based on the empirical reports from our observers, regardless of the outcome, the credibility of the 2013 harmonized elections is seriously compromised by a systematic effort to disenfranchise urban voters, up to 1 million voters.
The National Electoral Commission has been accused of favoring Mugabe and his allies.
All polling stations had opened on
Mugabe's
time.
ruling ZANU-PF party claimed a landslide victory in the presidential, legislative and municipal polls. But Zimbabwe's independent press detailed cases of fraud before, during and after the vote.
And over now to the fallout from the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. He left Moscow airport finally for a temporary asylum in Russia. But the world is still learning more from the information he allegedly obtained from the NSA, including a new secret surveillance program called X-Keyscore. The program, according to The Guardian, allows analysts access